The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Hello and welcome to On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. I'm Matt Asner and welcome to our first show in 2016. Today is the 12th of January. Welcome, and we're excited to be here. I'm slowly catching up to all of you with this New Year stuff. It's funny because when you go into the holiday break, usually you have no idea what day it is, you don't know where you are, and that's pretty much where I still am. So I'm slowly catching up, and hopefully this show will be a big push in the right direction for me in getting me back into the swing of things. It's been an interesting break. I've been catching up on a lot of the stories that filled our airwaves this year, and I'm going to go through the top 10 stories that, in terms of Autism Speaks website, what the top 10 stories were this year. We're going to do that in the intro here. And we're also going to talk about the iPad program. We give out over 1,000 iPads over the holidays to really deserving people who are in need of these iPads for their kids or themselves. And we're going to show you a quick video of that in a minute. And we're going to have a great show today. We have new Autism Speaks board member Stephen Shore. Is going to join us, Dr. Stephen Shore. He's going to join us and talk to us about what his dreams are, why he's on the board, and how exciting that is. He is one of two, count those, two people with autism now on the national board at Autism Speaks. Valerie Paradis is another one, and we're really pleased to have them. We're honored, and we're very excited about the future. We also are going to have Kate Movius on, and Kate is going to talk about the work she's doing in wandering, in preventing wandering, and training first responders and second responders, all responders who are dealing with children and adults with autism who wander. I know I've had a little bit of a problem with that with my kid. He's not necessarily a wanderer, but he's a very trusting young man. So we're going to talk a lot about that and talk about some possible solutions or Band-Aids for the problem. And our last segment, we're going to kind of combine the segments at the end. We're going to have my wife, Nava Asner, on, Nava Paskowitz Asner, and we're going to all talk about the holidays, and we are going to show a very special video about a visit to the dentist. And so watch the whole show because you'll be excited to see that. It's kind of fun. And we're going to talk about going to the dentist and going to places that aren't necessarily fun and how we deal with that. So the top 10 news stories for the 2015 year. I'm going to go 10 to 1, okay? We're going to go 10 to 1. We're going to do this real quick, and then we're going to get into the iPad video. So number 10, Disney's Inside Out, helping families with autism look at feelings. Now, Inside Out is one of my favorite films of the year, not just because of the closeness to autism that I think it has, but I think it's just a great film, and it really teaches us how important those feelings are working in concert. Number 9, Masters winner Jordan Spieth, inspired by sister with special needs. He won the Masters in April and dedicated his win to her. So very exciting story there. Number 8, siblings walk alongside twin brother with autism at graduations. This is Ali Bonville, who was a recent high school graduate and had a twin brother with autism. She shared her story about growing up with her brother. D.L. Hughley shares emotional story about his son with autism on Oprah. That's great. You should look it up. It's very emotional. Number 6, ID cards helping police interact with drivers with autism. Another important aspect of training first responders. I know my dad was pulled over once, and my brother was in the back seat, and my dad pulled the car over, and the cop comes up to the car and says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And my brother says from the back seat, "Do you know who you're talking to?" So, a lot of stuff can happen there, and it's very important to educate people about what's going on there. Number 4, Ellen, New York Jets surprise teenager with autism on national TV. So that was fun. Number 3, Sesame Street's new Muppet, Julia, has autism. You guys should check that out if you haven't heard about that. Number 2, Broadway star pens open letter after boy with autism interrupts show. That was actually a very cool one. It was a performance of The King and I, and someone got very irate in the audience. And the gentleman who was part of the cast wrote this incredible kind of manifesto about why he does what he does, and it was beautiful and touching, and people should read that. The number one story on the Autism Speaks website for the year 2015: Mall Santa goes the extra mile for the boy with autism. So basically, after this woman's son, Braden, was diagnosed with autism at age 3. She assumed there were some experiences that just might not be in the cards, so she took him to see a Santa, and the Santa was just very giving to that kid, and it was a very special video. Check it out. That was the number one story for our Autism Speaks year. Now I want to show you a little video. Every year we give out over 1,000 iPads to people who are in need. iPads, I know they're very special for several of the kids in our family, and I know a lot of people who really rely on not just an iPad for speech, for those who have speech issues, but for those that just need that diversion when they're out in public. It could be a curse and a blessing to have an iPad, but a lot of people really need this for their kids. There are special programs you could put on it. It's so we do this every year, and we have a short video that we're going to play, and then I'll be right back. So this is Autism Speaks iPad grant giveaway. Take a look.
Sophia, open. Open this. Open. Pull it.
How do you say iPad? iPad? What's in there? iPad! Yay!
Okay, let's see. Oh, that's so nice.
Wow. The anticipation. Is that awesome?
Yeah.
The iPad. Want to play on the iPad?
I want muffins.
You want Fruit Loops?
Fruit Loops?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we get your Fruit Loop.
Thank you, Autism Speak,
Thank you, Autism Speak.
for my iPad.
My iPad.
You like it, boy? Tony on. Yeah. Look. Tony on. You like it?
Thank you, Autism Speak.
What do you think?
Wasn't that amazing? So, like I said, there's 1,000 iPads, over 1,000 iPads given away to deserving people. And I think it was last year or the year before, I actually went and delivered to 2 families personally and gave them their iPads. And it was probably one of my favorite things that I've done at Autism Speaks, just because I got to see their faces. And it was very special. And it was great. So if you want to take part in our iPad program, it happens every September, October. And keep an eye on our website and our Facebook page for the call to action to apply for the grants, and we'll hopefully you'll get lucky and get a grant. Okay, we're going to be right back with Dr. Stephen Shore, new board member for Autism Speaks on the national board, first time ever, and we're going to talk to him about the future. We'll be right back. This is On the Spectrum. We'll be right back.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome.
Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter. Fun. Joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to On the Spectrum. My next guest, my first guest of 2016, this is very fitting because my first guest for 2016 is Dr. Stephen Shore. And I've known Stephen for a while now, and I've always been impressed by him. And I was very excited to hear that he was accepting the position on the National Board for Autism Speaks. He and Valerie Paradis are both on the spectrum. They're both on the national board. And Stephen Shore joins us right now from Boston. From Boston, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right from the Boston Higashi School. Today was opening day, as it is for many schools around the nation. And it's great to be on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And I can't tell you how excited I am for you to be on the board. Now, to be fair, you've been on the advisory board for how many years?
Well, I've actually been on the Family Services Committee for a number of years.
Right.
As far as I know, I haven't been on the advisory board.
That was my mistake. I was calling the committee an advisory board, so my bad.
Oh, okay.
But you were on the Family Services Committee for how many years? For 5 years, right?
Yeah, I would say a good 4 to 5 years.
And so, talk to us about what your feelings were when you were approached by, I guess Brian Kelly approached you, who's the new chair of the board, approached you and asked you to join the board. Tell us about what you felt about that.
Well, I guess it was a good thing I was sitting down because I thought I was going to fall on the floor. And it was like, here is Autism Speaks, the largest organization. Autism organization in the world is asking me to sit on their board, and it was such an honor. And I told them, let me think about it for a little bit. My wife came home, I talked to her, and she said, what the heck are you waiting for? Call them right back.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and it's a great honor to be on the board of Autism Speaks, and I've been to one board meeting so far, and it was a very intense meeting.
I know they are. Now, one of the things that I find most impressive about you is your ability to talk to people about the issues of autism. And I know you talk to a lot of people who have been diagnosed late in life, or certainly as young adults.
Right.
And I've talked to a lot of people who say that you've helped them immeasurably. And so I think there's an opportunity here to really have a great, strong voice from you and Valerie, and change, I think, a huge perception that people have that that Autism Speaks doesn't speak for them. So can you talk maybe about some of the things that you're interested in looking at, and how you might be giving a voice to the people?
Yeah, certainly. Well, ever since I've been working with Autism Speaks, I've always felt this intensity of work being done by a lot of good people. And specifically, I'm thinking about the Family Services Committee with Andy Shee and his work in the international arena. And what I found from these people and others is that there was a true sense of wanting to support individuals on the autism spectrum. And that goes all the way up to the top with Brian Kelly, who told me about his 19-year-old son, and he's all about providing supports to help him lead as fulfilling and productive life as possible. And it's great to see Autism Speaks going in that direction. Autism is something that's been with us for a long, long time, tens of thousands of years, maybe since the dawn of humanity. And if we look at autism as a set of characteristics, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but a set of characteristics, the question is, what can we do to engage these characteristics in a way that can help that person with autism lead fulfilling and productive lives? And given that those of us on the autism spectrum tend to be a study of extremes, meaning the things that we do well, we do incredibly well, and the things that we don't do so well, it can be pretty horrible.
Yeah.
That speaks to the need of both supports and also a way to help society understand how people with autism can contribute to humankind. That said, autism is an extremely wide spectrum, and in some cases, maybe it's too wide for its own good, because we do have people on the autism spectrum who have not developed a reliable means of communication, at least as of yet, or maybe they have, but we haven't figured it out. Some people on the spectrum have significant and debilitating sensory, digestive, or other conditions, and we're duty bound to continue our research in these areas as well and providing them support.
I'll tell you, Stephen, that's one of the things that I think, I've worked at Autism Speaks now for 5 years, and I think that's one of the things that frustrated me the most is that, certainly I'm here because of my own son and my sons and my brother. And if you look at my sons and my brother, we are a wide range of spectrum there. You're going from one end to the other, and it's each case is different. Each has their own anxieties and problems and blessings, and I think the thing that's frustrated me the most is that it's very difficult to get neurotypical people to understand that, and I'll even go so far as to say it's difficult to to get people with autism to kind of understand that and to deal with that and to deal with the fact that there is a difference there and that there are people who have challenges. And so how can we address that issue in a very diplomatic way?
Well, I think the best way to look at it is to develop an understanding of what the needs are of the individual who happens to be on the autism spectrum, whatever it may be. And I mentioned it could be sensory, it could be communication, it could be social interaction, it could be digestive, it could be whatever it is. And just providing for those needs. And there are those of us on the spectrum who have significant and intensive needs that require 24-hour supervision. And there are others of us on the spectrum who may still have needs, but the supervision or support may be more occasional in nature, maybe a couple hours a day or a couple hours a week. There are others on the autism spectrum, and especially going back to your mention of adults who've been diagnosed on the spectrum, late diagnoses, where they didn't know they had autism, or I should say have autism,
right.
And somehow they've managed to struggle through life and become successful. And then sometime in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, they find out that they're on the autism spectrum, and it answers a whole host of questions and allows them to be even more successful. So it's really getting into the needs of the individual, and that's what I think the developers of the DSM-5 were getting at when they eliminated the subtypes and they went to a severity scale.
Right. So let's talk about your autism. How would you say it manifests itself for you, for the audience?
These days, autism, the areas that it affects me include sensory. So I tend to be hypersensitive to certain sounds. Just for example, I was in our sunroom watching TV with my wife a couple of nights ago, and I was lying on the couch and she was sitting in a chair. There were 3 clocks ticking, sitting on the other end of the room and just ticking horribly loudly, like those travel alarm clocks that tick once a second. And I just said to her, we got to get these clocks out of here. Just put them in the kitchen or the dining room and just get them far, far away, because they were just too distracting. So things like that where autism makes its presence known. Other challenges include reading subtle social situations or office politics, and having a strong set of mentors at the workplace can help greatly with that. Facial recognition, a challenge for many of us on the spectrum. It's at such a point where it takes me all semester to begin to recognize my students. However, I use it as a teaching tool, one for managing the classroom, and 2 as a means of disclosure and recognizing what one's strengths and challenges are as an educator and how we can use them to be successful in teaching as well.
Great. So let's talk about 3 most important steps now for Autism Speaks in your view.
I would say that one of the most important steps, and Autism Speaks is well on its way to doing this, which is great, is listening to the voice of individuals on the autism spectrum. And Autism Speaks has been doing that in ways that sometimes were invisible to those of us on the autism spectrum, and certainly invisible to those of us who weren't close to Autism Speaks. And you probably have to visit the office in New York to know that there are at least 2 people on the autism spectrum working in the office and doing doing great jobs at what they do. Carrie Magro is one of them.
Carrie's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And he has autism, and it's almost like, well, why aren't you telling people this and letting people know in response to the criticism that there isn't, you might say, autistic involvement in Autism Speaks. And then now, inviting two people on the autism spectrum onto the board of directors is another great step. And I see it now as my mission to interface with the autism community, and you might say crowdsource, and getting a bead on what people with autism would like to see in terms of Autism Speaks, supporting individuals on the autism spectrum. So in other words, calling for constructive suggestions on what we can do better for the autism community.
Okay, now I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to ask you, what are the three most important things for the autism community to achieve?
I think I actually got one for Autism Speaks, and I didn't get the other two. But anyways, at least the first, the most important thing for the autism community, and I'm only speaking for myself, and I'm only speaking for the autism community as I understand it, because no one person can represent everybody. But I think a really good thing to do would be to engage in a conversation with Autism Speaks and talk to the people who are engaged with Autism Speaks in various capacities, such as being on the board. So I'm a person to engage with. Valerie Paradis is the other person, and also talking to people who aren't necessarily on the autism spectrum, and just having some nice, frank, understanding and direct talks, not blaming people and not getting into any battles, but looking at how we can all achieve what I think is a common goal, which is to reduce suffering and promote productivity and fulfillment in our lives.
Perfect. So have people been supportive of this decision of yours to join the board?
Yeah, most people have been supportive.
Good.
I would give it a good 90%, maybe a little bit more.
Well, that's great.
Based on what I've seen on my Facebook page, based on conversations that I've had, I'm sure there's other conversations going on in places that I haven't looked at, but at least based on what I've seen, it's been a very high majority, again, 90%, who are in support.
Well, Stephen, I am a huge fan of yours, have been for a long time. I've admired you for a long time. Glad to know you, glad to call you a friend. And I can't tell you enough how excited I am that you're on the board. I couldn't handpick a better person for the board. You and Valerie, I think, are going to change things for the better, and I'm excited to see what happens as a result. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and any final thoughts for the audience?
Well, it's my honor to be working with the people at Autism Speaks, and that we all need to be focused on what is the best for the individual on the autism spectrum, and what can we do to help those of us on the spectrum to lead fulfilling and productive lives to our greatest potential.
Words to live by. Words to live by. Thank you, Stephen. I so appreciate it. And get back to class.
All right, my pleasure.
See you soon. Take care.
Take care.
All right, that was Dr. Stephen Shore, new board member for Autism Speaks, national board member. He and Valerie Paradis are the new board members who are both on the spectrum. And it's very exciting to have them on the show. And we'll be right back with Kate Movius and Nava Paskowitz-Asner. Welcome back Down the Spectrum with Matt Asner, and joining me right now is my lovely wife, Nava.
Hello. Happy New Year.
And thank you. Happy New Year to you. I don't know if we've actually said that to each other since midnight.
I would hope so.
Since midnight.
Yes.
So
Happy New Year, Matt.
Happy official New Year.
To you too.
And
Hope
have
it's
you
a
adapted?
wonderful-
Are you
No,
back?
I'm
We're
not.
both
I'm
kind
not
of,
ready to go
we're
back
both
to
kind of
the-
wandering around a little bit, aren't we?
Yeah.
So
We've enjoyed this wandering.
exactly. Well, we can use this as a kind of jumping point into reality. So right?
Unfortunately,
All right.
back to the grind.
Well, we're going to talk about family stuff in a little bit.
Okay.
But joining us right now is our good friend Kate Mobius.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
And to you, Nava.
And welcome to 2016.
Thank you so much.
And
I'll be
welcome-
writing 2015 on every check I write until it's finally time for the year to change.
Right around December, we start. Right?
I actually wrote a check today, and I wrote it for 2016. So that's a huge
Good
jump
for
for me
you.
because I never do that. I'm like 2015 until March or
Yeah,
April.
doesn't happen for me.
So, okay, we're here for a very serious reason. And we had thought about doing a show about health today, but we decided to change things up because, unfortunately, there were some issues this weekend. Some things happened this weekend that are tragic, and we wanted to have you in to talk about wandering. And what specifically I'm talking about is the young man in Allentown, Pennsylvania, who Jael Vega Batista, who wandered away from a party that his family was having, and unfortunately was found later to have drowned.
Yeah.
This is a very common thing. Kids that wander, a lot of kids with autism wander. A lot of kids with autism wander towards water. I always think that we should take a look at these tragic things and try and build some hope into it, and try and build some progress into it. So how do we do this? I mean, there's some things that we're doing as an organization and as what you're doing in terms of training first responders and individuals to deal with autism. I think is a huge step in where we need to go. But what else needs to happen? We're going to talk about that. But let's first talk about your own son,
Aiden.
You're an expert in this.
Yeah, he's given me a PhD in autism.
So you'll literally go to sleep at night, or try to go to sleep at night, and you will wake up and realize that he's not home.
Well, fortunately, it hasn't happened that often, but we did have a major incident the summer before last where he did go missing for several hours. He had gotten out of our locked home, and he was wandering the streets of Los Angeles.
So as a parent, that's
nightmare.
Horrific. I mean, it's horrifying.
It was horrifying.
And I'm sorry, his age around.
At the time, he was 13. He's
Okay.
now 15.
So a 13-year-old who is limited verbal, right?
Yep.
Alone in the city in the middle of the night, wandering the streets of Los Angeles.
Quite a very urban area of LA. We live near eastern Los Angeles. And
Enough to send anyone into a tailspin. I would say that.
well, I love, yeah, it was terrifying. And the LAPD and the fire departments discovered him. I had at that time already called 911, but I was sleeping when he went missing. So we missed a few hours in there that we won't be able to fill in until Aiden can tell us.
Yeah.
And I have great hope that he'll be able to tell us what he did. He was very lucky. He was not injured. He was not traumatized. But he very well could have been. He was found right near a major intersection and was brought to the hospital to be checked out. And I was at that time already training families in wandering prevention. So that was the great irony, that the person who trains families in wandering prevention, that my own son had gone missing in such a dramatic fashion. So the two things that we changed from that point on, other than the behavioral intervention and training that we were giving Aiden himself, the signs that we had been posting around the home, And the communication that we had with first responders and our neighbors, those were the things we had already put into place. We added to that a state-of-the-art alarm system and keyless entry locks. And I can't stress enough how much those locks made a difference in Aiden's life. They're not that expensive.
Okay, so explain that to me. So,
Right, I don't know what that
keyless entry. So it looks like a fob, right? You have a fob. Is that what it is?
It's I don't know what a fob is.
Well, like I have it
Talking
on
Like
to
those
a-
little things that say.
It's an electronic
little
thing.
Apple
No.
thing.
Oh, it's not. Okay, so
electronic.
explain this to me.
It's not electronic.
Explain this to me.
It's simply a panel with buttons that you
Oh,
push that
okay.
are not electronic. So it's it's a mechanism
so
inside.
it's like a bike lock, so to speak.
Exactly.
And Aiden doesn't glance at that and go, dee.
Oh yes,
he's
he's
because I would think that.
sure.
He's trying to figure it out.
Well, I
He
mean,
is.
Eddie, if he just glances even out of the side of his eye at my code, he's been able to get my code for my
Yes.
phone. Like,
So that's the one thing that you have to continually watch out for. But I would say for any family that's concerned about wandering, that should be the first order of business. Oftentimes you'll read on wandering prevention websites, and it's a lot of the advice that's given, now I've learned the hard way, is not correct, which has to do with the locks. A lot of the websites will say to use deadbolts, which, by the way,
right.
are a fire hazard and are not approved by the
course,
Department
because
of
you need to
Child
get out.
and
If you
Family
need to get out,
Services.
you need to get out.
So, and that's how Aiden figured it out. He took a key and he opened the deadbolt. And again, it's dangerous to have a home that's locked,
Right.
both ways. So just to do your doors, redo your doors. If you can't afford a state-of-the-art alarm system, which most people, that's a major expense. Get some keyless entry locks. Have a locksmith put them in for a couple $100. It was a game changer for Aiden. Absolute game changer.
Now, in terms of, I mean, a lot of what you do is you work, like you said, you work with first responders who are, police, fire, ambulance drivers, EMT,
Right.
people, and you work with them to teach them about what autism is.
Sure. So that's the other
Different-
piece of
different
it.
facets
Right.
of autism.
Yeah.
So, explain to a family that's watching right now. Maybe they have a newly diagnosed child. They don't know if their child's going to be a wanderer yet. Maybe they do have a child that's exhibiting some wandering behavior. So let's talk a little bit about what maybe they can do within their community.
Sure.
To better safeguard and keep a horrible
Prepare the
situation
neighbors.
from happening.
I'd say the very first thing to do, if you're looking at this as like a pyramid, like the foundation, what I always say to families to do is to teach your child to swim, even before we take those next steps. Drowning is the leading cause of death, as we learned so tragically over the weekend out of Pennsylvania. It's the leading cause of death for children with autism who wander. 91% of fatalities for children with autism who wander have drowned.
Yeah.
oh.
Teach your child to swim. At the same time,
And I'll
as
just
you're
put a
doing
plug
that,
in there.
Yeah.
Autism Speaks has swim grants.
Fantastic.
So make sure you look at the website for that. They're amazing and teach your child to swim.
Here in
Yeah.
California, now this was several years ago for Aiden when he was very young, Aiden's swim lessons were funded by the regional center. So that might be worth looking into. We know funding has changed a lot in the last decade, but it's one of the things that I would lobby for myself is
Well,
that
that's the
swim
thing.
lessons be included
Yeah.
in automatically in services. It's a tricky thing to get passed through. But next, and simultaneously while you're doing that, you need to build community. You need to let your neighbors know, as Nava said. Also, a visit to your local police station is pretty important. Bringing your child to meet
Right.
officers
so
who
they're
are
not
in
freaked
uniform.
out when they see a policeman and
Right, exactly. But also to educate your local officers that you have a child with autism at the home.
Right.
Can they have 911 flag it? Sometimes you can have your address flagged so that, say, there is a 911 call that goes out. The dispatcher will be able to see that there is an individual with autism living at the house.
Which is very
wow.
important.
Yeah.
Especially if you have an adult living with you with autism.
Sure.
Who is nonverbal or limited
That's right.
verbal.
Who's very vulnerable.
We've all heard those stories of cops that come to houses and especially if there's an aggression issue.
Oh, right. They just take
it could
the
turn
kid.
really bad. So it's important for police to know and for fire and
Sure.
EMTs to know
It really helps them a lot.
what's going on in that house. One of the things I read about, and I thought this was a great idea, were night shirts. So to have your child sleep in a shirt if they're a wanderer, and because most of the wandering happens at night, I guess. Is that true?
What would stop a kid from just whoosh, taking that shirt off?
That would be the issue for Aiden. So Nava brings up a good point.
I'm sorry, I get right down to the facts.
Well, then the shirt would not work for them. But the shirt might work for someone who was out, walking around with a shirt on.
Sure.
And they're yellow. The ones I've seen are yellow, and they say on them, "I have autism. Please call 911."
And there's also If I
I'm
Need
alone.
Help. If I Need Help is a great organization that provides these shirts and other wearable IDs.
What about the bracelet?
Now, bracelets. Aiden's been through 3 of them.
That.
I just ordered another. So I'll keep you posted on whether he can keep it on.
And that's the problem.
Can't
here,
imagine
because
Eddie would do that.
Yeah.
That's the problem here, because identification is difficult, because you have kids or adults who have sensory issues and who don't like things on them.
Sure.
And they'll rip it off.
What about a internal device?
What, like a chip?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard people talk about that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
if
the
that's,
ethics are tricky there, and many people have talked about it.
I would do that.
My honest
in a
feeling about
second.
that. My honest feeling about that.
We have
is,
our dog chipped.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, my honest feeling
I
about
would
that is.
rather have my child found than have the tragedy of that.
I agree with you, 100%. 100%. If I would say
Our dog is chipped.
I would say if I would probably make that decision for my child.
There's an alternative,
Yes.
which is Project Lifesaver.
Right, and Autism Speaks just gave $98,000 to Project Lifesaver to help families in this area.
Which is fantastic.
So explain Project Lifesaver, and we're going to actually take a look at a video that we have that kind of explains one family who is using Project Lifesaver. So maybe explain a little bit about what they are, and then we'll go to video.
Project Lifesaver, kind of in a nutshell, is a wearable tracking device. It's worn either on the wrist or on the ankle. For those individuals who have a really hard time wearing things on the wrist and who are very good at taking items off the wrist, the ankle bracelet has, the anklet, I suppose it would be called, has proven to be really effective. Now, Project Lifesaver has to be put into place with your local police department. You can't just purchase it and have it work, because they possess all the tracking devices at the local station, so that should the person go missing, they can actually track. From the air, very, very high up, and over a wide range of terrain in urban areas.
So it's
this
a
is
personal
great.
tracking device.
It's a personal tracking device, but you have to have the cooperation and the involvement and the investment too, the financial investment of your local police department, which of course in the case of LA is LAPD, which is an enormous undertaking.
And you're working with them to hopefully transition them into
Well, I've worked with the Glendale PD and helped them to get that into place, and they're now running that program. And Glendale is an urban area. It's a city, and they ran a lot of tests to see if this tracking device would be effective near electrical towers and in warehouses, and it's really, really been effective. So I think it's, there's no technology that's perfect. And yes, chipping, it's many, many people, again, have asked for this and brought this up, and others have fought it and said that's not ethical. Anyway, we're in the infancy of all this tracking. But we, as families with children who may wander, or if you have an adult in your family who may wander, it's really important to avail yourself of anything and everything. So try the night shirt. Try the wearable technology. Try
That's the
a tracking
important thing.
device.
Try things.
Try things. If it's not available in your local community, talk to your local police department about it. Contact Autism Speaks. Try to get awareness out there. And that kind of feeds into another piece that you can put into place as parents with children, is to talk to all your neighbors. Right. Not everybody likes their neighbors. Not everybody trusts their neighbors. So you do have to choose who are you going to tell about your child's great vulnerability.
How do we deal with the individual?
Well, yes, very important.
I mean, our kid Will is not a wanderer. He's not a wanderer. He will stay with you. There's no problem. If you tell him to sit somewhere, he'll sit somewhere. The issue that Will has is trust, and
too much trust.
Too much trust.
Yeah.
And basically, if someone comes up to him and says, "Hey, I've got, and this has happened. I've got a dog in the car. You want to come see the dog?"
Yeah.
And he'll go with, and that's it. Bye, Will. And so we've got to be very diligent about him and keeping an eye on him. And I learned my lesson with him. Boy, I looked the other way once, or I did something I'd done like a million times,
Right.
And found him. He was almost abducted. So, very difficult.
And that's a good question about what do you do with the individual.
And that's the thing, because I have talked to him. Nava's talked to him. Everyone's talked to him for endlessly. Trying to get him to understand the dangers of.
Does he have a social story? Does he have a photo book?
We have done that, but he, and I got to say he's better than he was, much better.
And
than he was.
he understands so much, and you can reason with him, and he gets it now.
Right.
I think he really
worked.
understands the difference between strangers.
Your strategies worked.
But I still have that never-ending
Always.
fear in me.
It's a hypervigilance.
And then
That
if
the
it
right
was a
person's
woman,
going to come along and say, "Hey, come with me."
and if it was a woman,
And
if it was a
yeah.
guy who had a woman, do his
Well,
dirty work.
I don't think you can ever
protect them from
Yeah,
everything.
whether or not they're autistic.
That's true.
But for Aiden, we are still, but we have for years worked on teaching him about safety, which does not come, as we all know, it does not come naturally. Looking both ways to cross the street does not come naturally. Stranger danger does not come naturally. So we've created a variety of social stories through his ABA program, which was absolutely key in helping him. That said, he still needs to run. And so what I always ask myself is, why does Aiden need to run? The reason that my son needs to run, which may not be the same reason that someone else has, is because he is an incredible athlete. He needs to run. He needs to feel his body running through space. He doesn't tell me this yet. I'm sure he will eventually. But this is what I, just by watching him and knowing him, I have to try to ask myself, why is it that he wants to do this? What's compelling him to do this? And in his case, it's his extreme athleticism, which may not have the kind of outlet that someone without autism would naturally be able to get, let's say, in a basketball league or, football. Aiden would have trouble playing a team sport. So the other piece of this is sort of looking at it holistically. How can we address that need in Aiden? So we try to get, he gets out and about and runs in the community. We have great community integration support through the regional center, and we also have enrolled him in CrossFit through Special Fit, which is an incredible company that serves the needs of those with autism. So that sort of helps address things too, but it's just it's a patchwork. You have to work with your local police department, work with your neighbors, work with your child, look into tracking devices, look into wearable devices, and of course secure your home and teach the child to swim. And I kind of went backwards in the priority there.
Right.
When Aiden went missing, the officers were unable to understand him when they asked for his name. He is able to respond to that, but it was too fast. And so learning from that, I'm realizing maybe another good way would have been to have him type it, because Aiden types.
Right.
So,
but giving them the example of all the different
it helps the
variations of
officers so
autism.
much, and they really appreciate it. And I think that part of my training goes much farther than all my lecturing, is when they actually meet kids and teens on the spectrum.
Yeah. And I have another must for parents out there, and then we're going to say goodbye to you. You must teach your child your phone number.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Must. And what's funny is the other day, I had a famous story at the LA Auto Show where Will went missing, and I panicked. I was panicked. I was running around. Oh, God, it was horrible. And all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's someone, calling me, a guy from Voval calling me and saying, "Hey, I think I have your son here with me. He told me to give you a call." And I'm like,
wonderful.
"Oh my God, thank you."
Yeah.
And he knew my phone number. I had no idea he knew my phone number. And the other day we're sitting at home, And I was kind of remembering that story.
But you were actually lecturing to me, saying, you have to teach Eddie your phone number. You have to teach. And God bless his teachers in the ICAP program last year. Matt just says out of the blue to him, Eddie, you have to learn your mom's phone number. And what's your mom's phone number? And he just said it without hesitation perfectly. Gave my phone number.
That is
unbelievable.
Great.
And we both screamed, and he was like, too loud, too loud, too loud.
You can implement these things in your IEP. So all this wandering prevention, it's very important to construct that into your IEP through the regional center. So learning phone numbers, street address, name, whether it's typed or it's spoken. You don't have to be verbal to learn these things, and you just have to figure out a way to teach our kids. So that's a good point.
Very good. Well, okay, so if anyone wants to come to this training or take part in this training, how do they get in touch with you?
They can contact me at katemovius@gmail.com.
katemovius@gmail.com. And we'll have that on our Facebook page. Kate, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I'm so appreciative of what you do. You're one of the heroes of our community here in Los Angeles. And those of you that don't know her outside of Los Angeles, maybe you will someday.
If you're lucky.
But thank you so much for what you do, and it's always a pleasure. You're a good friend to my wife as well, and you're much appreciated.
Thank you, Matt.
So thank you, and good luck with the training.
Thank you.
And we're actually gonna play this video from Project Lifesaver right now, and then we're gonna come back. And do a quick story and say goodbye. So we'll be right back. This is Project Lifesaver.
He has moderate to severe autism. He was diagnosed officially when he turned 3. I had suspicions between about 15 and 18 months when he stopped acquiring language. He wouldn't respond to his name when you called him, but he could run from upstairs down to the television set if he heard the Barney song come on. So that was a disconnect, that something else must be going on.
He's observant. He knows what's going on around him. So we have to assume that there's more going on upstairs than he's able to communicate or let on.
He's also adventuresome, and he doesn't understand danger, like going into other people's cars, crossing the street, leaving our safe home. All the kids had gone trick-or-treating in one large building that was an apartment complex a couple blocks away from our home. And the next night, without us realizing it, John left the house, and I think he was trying to go back and trick-or-treat some more. He really liked all that candy that he had gotten. And then after that, we really became aware of putting locks on doors and always making sure we knew where John was.
Initially, we had locks on all the doors, but locks to keep people from getting out as opposed to keeping people from getting in. We had an alarm system installed.
He was down playing in the basement, and he was able to stack up boxes and go out a small window in the basement. He's also taken a butter knife and gone around the whole edge of the window and pushed the whole thing out.
He's a lovable kid, and to think that he's out there somewhere, you just feel like you just flunked the test.
I am a police officer in Montgomery County, Maryland, and my job is primarily to ensure the safety of individuals with autism. We've trained our officers to help them, and we're prepared to help them no matter what the situation. Project Lifesaver is a program where we place tracking bracelets on individuals that have a propensity to elope and wander, and officers using the equipment provided are able to track the bracelet.
The most recent one was the first time we've actually used Project Lifesaver, his tracking bracelet, and that worked fairly quickly. He was found inside a grocery store about 1.5 miles from our house, and he had a sleep shirt on that have been given by the Montgomery County Police Department. A car driving by saw this shirt that says, "I have autism. If I'm alone, please call 911," and they did.
What I was finding though is we needed to do more than just tracking. We needed to have a community outreach tool that was a layered approach to safety. Individuals with autism may become scared, they may hide, they may bolt and run from us. So we teach our officers those dynamics so that in the event of a search, they're prepared. They're never shocked. They're never surprised.
We've taken him out to events, that open houses that the police department holds, and we introduce him to them and vice versa. so he gets to see them in a calm, happy setting.
And what's also happened is that officers know John. All of the officers know John. So when John goes missing, it's all hands on deck. And everybody knows John's missing, and we're going to look for John. So I think what it's done is it's put a face and allowed officers to have a little bit more compassion.
What should the person do? Home what? And what's that? Is that your home phone number? Yeah. I always want John to first to be safe, in a safe environment. And then I want him to be happy. So those are my two biggest. Whatever he can achieve beyond that, that's icing on the cake, but safety and happiness are really what we hope for.
Go kiss your mother.
Have a kiss. One more. Thank you.
Welcome back to On the Spectrum. Okay, so one of the things that Nav and I did over the break was, take a couple of the kids to the dentist, namely Will and Eddie to the dentist. Both the kids with autism, both with a little bit of an anxiety situation about the dentist. Nava has posted on Facebook about her dental experiences in the past with Eddie, and so I think about last year. It was last year?
Yeah. This is the fourth dentist.
Fourth dentist. Last year, Nava literally had to get in the chair and scissor grip him into the chair and force his mouth open to get the dentist to be able to take care of him. Will was in a situation where he would not sit in the dentist chair. It freaked him out. He didn't want to go back. He didn't want to get in the comfy chair. So victory on all fronts.
Thanks to this wonderful doctor, though.
Thanks to Dr. Vafa.
I found Dr. Vafa through the resource guide, which I think, to me, going back in time, the Autism Speaks resource guide saved my life, because you put in your zip code, it's like a miracle. It's like things local to your
resources.
Right, and Dr. Vafa was a wonderful doctor who had been vetted by Autism Speaks, but also he took Medi-Cal. And for me, being a single mom at the time, the fact that this wonderful doctor who happened to be in this huffy Beverly Hills office took Medi-Cal, it was like a miracle. And through his gentleness and kindness, he's completely turned Edwin and now Will around, and our entire family sees him. He's wonderful.
And so, so Will sat in the chair. Will leaned back.
He actually told you, Dad,
he actually told me to leave. He told me to leave, and I ended up leaving, and he was alone in the chair and had his teeth cleaned. He's a man. He's a man. And then Eddie still had a little bit of problem and wanted to do some role reversal.
Yeah.
So I volunteered. And Kelby's going to play a video right now of the actual role reversal, the role playing that happened at the dentist's office. This is Eddie at the dentist.
Wait.
He literally stuck that all the way down my throat.
Sometimes, it uses a special little mirror. Look around and inside your mouth.
Dr. Eddie? He loves that light.
Okay.
Is everything okay? Am I okay?
No. You're not okay.
So as you see, Dr. Eddie discovered, 3 cavities in my mouth, and I'm going back for fillings next week with Dr. Eddie.
Nice Jewish doctor. I'm so proud.
But Eddie, what that reversal did, and that's what actually you mentioned, Dr. Vafa, to allow a child to kind of take over like that for a little bit. And
he made Eddie put gloves on. He's like, oh, so Dr. Eddie, what do you think we should do? He was just, he's an incredible guy.
So it made everything more comfortable. And Eddie literally got in the chair after that and
perfect
opened his mouth, and there was no problem at all.
Right.
So
thank God.
I guess the story here is don't be afraid to experiment and
don't give up.
If there's anxiety, try making it
Try
again.
somebody else. Don't force the kid. That's the thing. I think so many parents are embarrassed. They're embarrassed, just fundamentally sometimes, and then they're embarrassed to complain. They think, oh, my kid's already, loud and weird and whatever, and they're embarrassed to complain when in fact it might be that that's just not the right dentist for them.
Right.
So literally Dr. Baffa was the fourth guy that I found.
And you know, I can't tell you how important dental is, you know, for any kid. You know, no one wants to go to the dentist. I don't want to go to the dentist. Our kids don't want to go to the dentist. And it's important, and finding the right dentist is a really important aspect of
it. Definitely was
finding
a
the
gift
dentist that's going to make you comfortable.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're out of time.
Alrighty.
And thank you for joining me
Here's
today.
to a wonderful year.
Yes.
You and Matt.
Lots of wonderful things happening.
Yes.
Lots of wonderful things happening for you. And I want you to share it with me. I want you to share with me the wonderful things that happen to you. So if you have a wonderful thing that happens to you, tweet me about it at MASNER, and let me know. Let me know what's going on in your life. Our February show is going to be really cool. When I did a show a while back called Autism America with my friend Nick Gieber. And we had a regular segment with a young man named Alex Fischetti, who is on the spectrum, and he's just fascinated with Hollywood. So we're going to have a regular Hollywood segment from now on the show from Alex Fischetti, and he's going to talk about the Oscar race next month, and who he likes, who he doesn't like, what the buzz is. And we're going to talk to him and see what's going on. And that'll be a regular segment from then on. And I'm excited about that. Alex is an amazing guy, and I think he'll entertain you all a lot. And I think it'll add a lot to the show. Until then, keep the hope alive, and we will see you next month on Autism. I was going to say on Autism Live. On the Spectrum. Thanks.
Wow. Sand. Does that feel funny in your hands? Do you want to go swing? Jack Riley. Jack. Good looking. Thank you.
I accept that he has sensory issues. I completely accept that he has speech delays. All of the symptoms and the things that lead up to the word autism, I have no problem accepting that. And I have no problem addressing that and being aggressive about it and making those things happen. It's the word itself that I have a hard time with, mostly because of my perception, and I imagine the perception of a lot of people that autism is Rain Man.
I don't have my maple syrup either. I'm going to be without my maple syrup and my toothpicks.
It's all these images that you see, you know, even when they put a child on TV, it's a child who's so severe and doesn't hug his parents, and because our son does that, it's just hard for me to make that leap. And then logically, I get it. It's a big spectrum, and it's just a personal thing. But it's hard for me to say the word because you don't want to admit anything.
It makes it real to say the word.
We knew it even before to a certain extent. You know, he would line up cars and
I'd walk on the knuckles of his toes a lot.
I mean, I remember even having conversations saying like, I'm sure he walks on the knuckles of his toes. I'm sure he lines up his toys.
Yeah, the more times you say, oh sure, then you find eventually you've got
he
to
spins.
Draw a circle around those and say, okay, what does that add up to?
So we always noticed that.
He didn't point.
He never pointed, although we didn't realize that until we went through this process. If our pediatrician had asked us, you know, 8-9 months ago, does your son point? We would have known a lot right then. We decided last fall to get Jack Riley tested for speech delay. We noticed that he wasn't saying a lot. He didn't say mommy, he didn't say daddy. He was a little different when we would take him out in public. So we contacted the regional center to get him evaluated for speech delay, in my mind. And that was the worst I thought it would be. So when they told us autism, I think that word was far worse than we ever expected.
Yeah, I remember I kicked the garbage can when we were outside. My foot hurt. I remember that. That wasn't a very good day.
How were they with letting you know that was the diagnosis?
I guess in my recollection, and this is me projecting quite a bit, but they pitied us.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. And they're talking sort of like I was 12 years old or something like that. Who knows how to deal with that kind of stuff? I mean, even if you're a professional and that's what you do all the time, I don't know. You don't know the people you're telling very well.
There was a lot of the head shaking, and he's still the same beautiful child that you came here with, but yet they're sitting there like they've just given us a death sentence.
Yeah, it was almost like they just told us he had cancer or something.
So I don't know if I'm reading that in, or I don't think that I like them that much. I still don't think I do. And we didn't love that process either. They brought him in there and gave him 45 new toys and said he's more interested in the toys than he is in us.
We
People that he never met.
We thought what kid wouldn't be, but.
But then in retrospect, in the hour and a half, 2 hours that he was there, he never once showed us one of the toys. He didn't come to us to engage us in any of it. And actually they did us a favor because we would have fought it. I mean, just in our heads, we would have fought the autism diagnosis. We wouldn't have. Had they told us that he's fine, we would have left and got him speech therapy, and that would have been it.
Probably, yeah.
We're pretty numb about all of this. I mean, we found out November 2nd. It's 4 months. It's also kind of a mourning period, so I think we went very numb for a while.
Yeah.
But we're coming out of that now too, where we're starting to, click, so that there are things that we can do. I mean, I think for that. The unfortunate part for a while was that we were both thinking, come and help us, everybody, please.
Mm-hmm.
We have this thing that we don't know how to deal with it, and, time's a ticket, come and help us, tell us, and now we're just kind of do it ourselves, and we're the ones who know it best, and, we can take all this information that people tell us, and then we can adapt it to what we know will work for him, and he's already responding. It's slow, but...
I personally forgot for a while to enjoy him. I just took care of him all day, and I wasn't having fun. Now I'm back to just how cute he is and how incredible that little thing he just did is, and that smile and the joy he gets out of one simple little thing. And but for a while there, I forgot to do that. I just was getting through the day. Maybe he didn't want to notice. Maybe I didn't want to notice things because a lot of them point to the A word, autism again. There's no one to talk to about it because even when you bring up the idea that's possible, your family members, no, he's fine. They want to help you say no and deny it. He seems fine. He's just, my son didn't talk till he was 3.5.
Yeah, a lot of people, that was part of why we didn't even have him evaluated until we did, because a lot of people would tell us that.
Yeah, and everyone tells me their son didn't speak till he was 3.5 and wasn't potty trained till he was 4, and so, my kid's normal. Well, it's easy to deny it, but we're not denying it anymore.
I ordered a pair of earrings, and they were puzzle pieces, because my son liked puzzles, and I thought, this is in honor of my son, I'll wear these earrings. They had the right colors, and I thought, this is great. And we were probably two days away from going to this diagnosis, and I'd done enough research to know what they might say. And it occurred to me that puzzle pieces were symbolic of autism. And I was like, I have to send them back. I'll wear them. This is terrible. I can't believe I've ordered autism earrings.
Yeah.
And didn't wear them for months. They sat there, I looked at them every day, and I thought, I'm going to put these earrings in today and accept it and move forward. And couldn't do it. Thought I can't wear them to OT because they'll think I'm just wearing autism earrings to, make a statement. And I finally started wearing them probably, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So I guess that means I'm getting used to the idea.
I see it in adults now. I'm very conscious of it. Maybe it helps to just think everybody has it a little bit. We were getting Jack a haircut a few weeks ago. We still say the A word instead of autism. I'll say A word, it's your A word. And
That was for real though.
That was real. This 15-year-old kid walks in, and Toy Story 3 is on, and there's little kids getting their hair cut, sitting on chairs and animals and whatever. And he starts talking out loud to whoever would listen, saying how much money Toy Story 3 had made, and it's the largest grossing in history and blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, okay, I'll see you guys later. And he walked out, and I go, Hayward? And she goes, oh, yeah. Okay. So at least we got a little sense of humor about it now.
Are you watching Daddy dance?
Good morning and welcome back to Autism Live in the actual live version. I'm Shannon Penrod and thrilled to be here with you this morning. I know you guys just watched an incredible hour with Matt Asner, On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. How lucky are we to have him here, and I love having him kick off the year, but I'm glad to be back too, and I'm glad to be here with you guys. We're here in the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live, and it's also the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. We're here on the 18th floor of Tower 1 in the Warner Center. Thrilled to be here. Want to remind all of you that we're going to be with you. Normally we're 2 hours live with me, but we had the fabulous Matt Asner with us for the first hour. So we got about 45 minutes left where I'm going to be live with you, answering your questions and having a chat with you. We always like to remind you, whether it's me chairing the desk here or Matt Asner or any of our other special guests that we have, we're like, the old-fashioned VJs. We're different AJs, though, or autism jockeys here. That the show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. We want to participate with you. We want you to be a part of the conversation. So Kelby, the fabulous Kelby, is going to remind you some of the different ways that you can participate in the show. I'll remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. So much to do when you go there. Please check out all the different things there, but you can be watching the live show or the most recently recorded live show just by clicking the little arrow that is on the computer screen. Now, if you'd like to go back further than that, the truth of the matter is that you can go back up to 100 episodes on that page. Now, if you want to, and I'll tell you what's great about that is that you can pause, you can stop, you can rewind. It's fabulous. You can't do that with a live show. Now, but with a live show, you can interact with us in real time. So you see those white boxes that are to the side of the screen there? There's one that says your question. If you put your cursor there, you type, you hit enter, and it shows up here on my screen. Today it's on my little screen. That's a whole other Oprah. But you and I can be having a conversation in real time, and more importantly, when we have guests here, you can be having a conversation with them. It's all free, it's all anonymous. We don't get to know who you are unless you tell us, and you can tell us, and if you do, we won't share that with the people at home. I tell you, that's not really the important thing, though. I would encourage you, something to share, though, is where in the world you are. And by that, I mean, what's the closest major city that you can get to on a regular basis, so that we have a way of gauging what services might be available to you. And more there are services that are not in major cities, but just my geography is somewhat lacking. So it helps me to figure out where in the world you are, like Waldo. All right, and I always like to remind you at the start of every show that I'm not an expert. We have many experts that are on the show, but I'm not one of them. I can tell you, though, today that officially I have been an autism parent for 10 years. It is this week that we commemorate the anniversary of when my son was diagnosed with autism. So, obviously he had autism before he was diagnosed, but it was the first time that we knew for sure what it was we were looking at. So I feel like I've crested something, and I'm now officially a veteran, but not a pioneer, because there's so many people who came before us, and not an expert. Whew, if there's one thing I am 100% clear on, the more I learn about autism, the more I find there is more to know. So not an expert, but somebody who cares deeply. And I can tell you with all truth that 10 years in, I am incredibly grateful for this experience and all the things that it has taught me. I still tell you with all honesty that if I could rewind and go back in time and have something else happened, I'm sure that I would still choose something else, because I would not choose this path for anyone. And I know that there are many of you who are out there who are watching who are on the autism spectrum who might be offended by that. And I apologize, but that's my truth, and I have to share my truth. But I will say this: I wouldn't change my child in this moment in time. I wouldn't change him for anything, not anything. But I'm also incredibly grateful because the distance between 10 years ago and now has more to do with the help and support that we got than just time. And why I'm so grateful for how he is the help and support that we got. So we're going to talk a lot about that in the next 45 minutes and in the next year. But remember, I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who cares deeply and wants to help you get to the progress that you deserve, whether you are a parent, you're a teacher, you're a practitioner, you're the person who's on the autism spectrum. We all can and should make progress around autism because it's worthwhile and it's available. It's not easy, but it's available. So I want to encourage you to be here and be a part of the discussion and have hopes that we can all get to that point. I know if you just watched the last hour, you saw some incredible discussions, including Dr. Stephen Shore, who I think is truly one of the most amazing people I've ever met. So there's a lot of good stuff to be found here on the autism spectrum. Especially when we give it the right amount and the right kind of attention. So in any case, we're going to be with you here for, like I said, the next 45 minutes. We have a lot of things that we want to cover. And in this new year, we've added some things, but we're keeping to some things that we've had all along. So my friends, it is time for that part of the day when we call it the jargon of the day, jargon du jour, when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out what are the experts talking about and what does this mean to us and how do we move forward. So I feel like it's a day to go back to the beginning. It's the beginning of a new year. For me, it's a new decade in the field of autism. And for all of us, it's a new day, right? So our jargon term, we go back to the beginning, and ASD. What are we talking about? When somebody says ASD, what does that mean? Because it's changed. Even in the last year, it's changed. So technically, let's take a look at what our actual definition is. It's autism spectrum disorder. Now this is an umbrella that encompasses diagnoses that used to be PDD-NOS, autistic disorder, or Asperger's syndrome. Those diagnoses no longer exist in terms of getting that diagnosis. That doesn't mean that if you had Asperger's that, it's wiped out. That's not what it means. But if you were to go to the doctor now, you would not be diagnosed with that. In fact, insurance companies, and this is what this all boils down to really, if you had a diagnosis, they're asking people to go and get their diagnoses updated. That we're seeing that across the board in order for somebody to get funding for them to get their diagnoses updated. So it is now autism spectrum disorder, and that is the proper term and the proper designation, and it is, for the moment, politically correct to say that someone has ASD. We'll see, because I'm sure somebody will take offense to that for myriads of reasons any moment now. But let's take a look at what our working definition for ASD is. You see, we worked that down so much it says autism, PDD-NOS, or Asperger's syndrome. Because it's hard to put a finger on, let's talk about the 3 areas of deficit that could qualify someone potentially for an autism spectrum diagnosis, for the disorder diagnosis. So there's 3 different areas. One of them is communication, that you must demonstrate a deficit in communication, and that encompasses a lot of different things now. Because the diagnosis has changed, it's no longer the flat, there was a set of criteria that involved you being able to express yourself. And the good news is in the new criteria, it is also about it being a two-way street. We see that a lot of individuals who used to have an Asperger diagnosis, they could talk a mile a minute and they could monologue with you. But they were a lot of times missing the ability to hold a conversation and have that back and forth thing happen. That is now a part of the criteria for a diagnosis. And it includes not just verbal communication, but gesturing, being able to make eye contact. That is included in communication under the heading of social communication. Being able to understand when somebody's feelings are being hurt, that all comes under that criteria. Now, if you look at the new criteria for diagnosis, you'll see that it will label things by severity. So it used to be before that it was like you had to have a certain number of things in a certain number of areas. Well, now you have to have something in each area and then they rate it by severity. So maybe you have 2 things under number 1, which is communication and social communication. But they're not as severe, right? So the rating system is entirely different now. Second area of deficit is, and it feels like, oh, wait a minute, these are kind of related. There's communication, there's social communication, and then there's the whole area of social dynamic, which isn't just about communication. So there's that as well. And then the third one, which I think is the one that people recognize the most, which is the repetitive and restrictive area, where the person will engage in behaviors that seem odd or unusual, that maybe they line things up, or maybe they need to go to school the same way every day. They have to say it in one way. If you watch The Big Bang Theory, the fact that Sheldon has to knock on the door a certain number of times and say, Penny, 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 before he can come in. And even if she interrupts him and says yes after the first penny, he can't do it. He has to get the other 2 in. So those compulsions, those obsessions, those habitual obsessions, things that you need to do repeated, that's another part of it. Now that can look vastly different for different people. And again, remember that the criteria, if you have that, but it's not very severe, you can get a less severe rating for it, okay? But you must have deficits in those 3 areas in order to qualify for an autism spectrum disorder. I know there was a period of time in which we all felt like the sky was falling, because how can, we get rid of PDD and OS, and how can we get rid of Asperger's in this diagnosis and all these people who weren't going to get diagnosed? And the irony of it being that I don't think that we really saw that happen in floods. I'm sure that there were people who no longer qualified, but we didn't see that happen. And instead, we saw an increase of people being diagnosed and then people pinning it on the diagnosis, the criteria, saying, oh, well, that's why. When in fact, I think, like a lot of people, there is an increase in autism. I firmly believe that. I see that every day of my life. And you can change the diagnoses 38 ways, and I think we're still going to see an increase of people with an autism spectrum disorder. So that's my opinion, and everybody's entitled to one, right? But so this is what we're talking about with ASD, an autism spectrum disorder. If you are somebody who just has a compulsion that you need to do something and you need to do it in a certain way, you won't qualify for the diagnoses, because you have to have things in all 3 areas in order to qualify. Okay, so hopefully that didn't confuse you more than it confused me. But so important that we know what it is that we're discussing when we talk about an autism spectrum disorder. Moving on, we always have a question of the day. Our question for you today, because we're commemorating this 10-year mark, I want to know from you, what did you know about autism 10 years ago? I recall knowing enough, just enough, that I thought I knew what autism was, but not knowing anything. I said earlier this morning that if you could have taken what I knew and filled it, it would have, filled a thimble. That's what it would have filled. Not a bucket, a thimble. And, 10 years later, We're going to talk about what do I know now. But in any case, love to hear from you guys today. What did you know about autism 10 years ago? How did it feel 10 years ago knowing that much about autism? Because a lot of us were walking around in a world where this just wasn't a part of it. And I think it's important for us to remember that when we get frustrated with people who, thinking specifically about political candidates, where we're like, hey, why aren't you paying attention? But I can tell you this much, I know 11 years ago, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention. And we need to get in that mindset as we go to our friends, family members, communities, leaders, teachers, politicians, when we're talking to them about autism, and remember, what was it like for us before we knew, and fill those gaps in. All right, we always have a topic for our week. And can you guess what our topic is now? It should be very evident. We're talking about autism 10 years later. And we're going to be talking about that throughout the week. It's been an emotional week for me already, thinking about, what did we know? What did we find out? What do we know now? And where do I want to get in this next decade? So we've put in 10 years that I gotta say, not to pat myself on the back because it was rough and ugly and it certainly wasn't frilly and wonderful, but I am proud of my family for what we have accomplished in our family in 10 years. I've shared before on the show. Now, see, I didn't bring in the box of Kleenex. I swore I wasn't going to swear, but wasn't going to cry or swear. I swore I wasn't going to cry. But there was a moment that came for us fairly early on, I would say in this first 6 months of full-on autism after we got the diagnosis, where Nancy calls it the kitchen floor club. I was on the kitchen floor and saying, okay, I promise, help me to help my child. And I will do whatever I physically can to help my child and rise to the occasion. And I promise that if you help me to help my child, that I will do whatever I can to turn around and hand it back to other people. Now, I will tell you that I did not think that we would have the opportunity in the 10-year time period for us to help somebody else. Like, I said it and I meant it, but I thought that was 20 years away. And I'm thrilled that my family gets to participate every day in trying to help other families to find their way. That has to be the most rewarding thing for us as a family, to know that we are putting paid to that every day. We will never get it fully paid off. We have so much to pay forward. But thrilling to me that in less than 10 years' time we could get to the point where we are happily saying yes, no, we're contributing and making the attempt at least to help other people. And that's what this show for me is all about, to help you to find your way and to know that you're not alone. None of us is alone. Okay, so some of the things that we're going to be talking about this morning, we have a new year, new things to look at. We've got some autism news to cover, some of it really devastating, which involves some of the things that we've learned in 10 years. And then we've got a new segment we're calling Tuesdays, Self-Care Tuesdays. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about because I need this as much or more than you do. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I left here. We did our last show on December, I think it was the 17th or the 18th. And then we have been away for the last 3 weeks, and I have been sick for almost every single moment of it. And I'll tell you what, it was Nancy and I had that discussion the other day, and she was like, all right, what's it going to take for us to take care of ourselves? And I'm there. I need a new leaf, and self-care is the thing of the hour. And so I'm going to drag you along with me, and hopefully you want to go with me. Hopefully I saw so many autism moms post over the break, because I wasn't even well enough to read a book, but I said I was going to Periscope every day. Trust me, like, you wouldn't have wanted to see me. Oh my goodness, infected eyes. Oh, horrible, horror of horrors, right? And I still don't have full voice back yet, but I was able to scroll a little bit on Facebook and see some of the things that you guys were writing in, and I saw autism mom after autism mom saying, I didn't take care of myself in 2015. And autism mom saying, I gained, this amount of weight, and I did, and I haven't taken care of this, and I did, and I think we can all relate to that. But I want to offer to all of us, myself included, let's be part of a party that says 2016 is going to be different. So we're going to take a break. I'm going to drink some hot tea. We're going to talk about what our first tip for self-care is and our first thing to focus on this week and why it's so important. Stick with us. Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and I honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. And that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. Like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
Get your autistic kids out in the community. My son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Welcome back. It's Self-Care Tuesday. This is going to be a regular feature here on our Tuesdays, and I wanted to take just a second to talk about why. Why are we doing Self-Care Tuesdays? Over the years, I have talked to so many people who have put long amounts of time into the autism community. When I talk to the adults who are on the autism spectrum, one of the first things that I always ask them is, where's your mom? How's your mom? And I'm thrilled to be able to say that a lot of the moms are okay, but I would tell you that there is a substantial number of the moms who are no longer a part of the picture because their health deteriorated to the point where they couldn't be a part of the picture, or they aren't here on the planet anymore. And that frightens me. It really does. And you know, it's so easy in the moment to go, well, I just need to get through this. I just need to get through this. I can tell you that when we were in our intensive behavioral intervention, that was my focus. We were going to do that, and everything else was going to take a back seat, including my health, except that in year 2, we got to the point where I had a complete and total physical and mental breakdown. And it slowed up our process for a period of time until I could get treatment and I could get better. So, you know, it's that oxygen mask thing. They tell us on the airplane, if something happens and there's an emergency, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first. I know we all think, well, no, but if I'm a good mom, I would put the oxygen mask on my child first. But they explain it to you always on the plane that you're going to lose consciousness and then you're not going to be able to help anybody. So you got to put yours on first and then you put it on your child. Same thing that they teach people when they're doing life-saving skills in the water, that all lifeguards are taught you must preserve your safety first or you cannot help anyone. And we have got to start taking that attitudes as the moms and the dads and the caregivers for individuals who are on the autism spectrum, that if we're not taking care of ourselves, truly we're running the short race of taking care of anybody else, and that won't work. Now, here's the other thing that I am learning painfully over being sick the last few weeks and having a child who's about to be 13 here in just a couple of months and is in that teen thing, right? Where I've noticed all of a sudden, and I don't know whether it was there all the time, but I just have noticed that sometimes the way that I am treated in my own home is not what my expectation is, right? And the other day we got into a moment where my son spoke to me in a way that it was not what I would have. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean by this? And I kind of went straight up and turned left and I said, I beg your pardon. And we've had this discussion before because I don't like to be spoken in a way that it's not, you know, I'm not deserving of, right? And I said, I am the person who, you know, helps take care of you. I'm a nice person. I do X, Y, and Z. I don't know what made you think that you could speak to me that way. If you spoke to a stranger that way, I would ground you. So why would you think that you could talk to me that way? And you know what I discovered through talking to my son is that I have taught him that I am less than. I have. Because I don't take care of myself the way I should. I am not setting the example that I am someone who is important. I am not setting the example that I am worthwhile. I am not setting the example that I am someone to be revered. And, you know, not only is that bad in terms of my health and my relationship with my son, but it is a lesson now that I have modeled for him for his self-care. When we were all sick in the last couple of weeks, and at one point I said to him, you need to do this for yourself. And he was like, yeah, well, you know, I'm not going to do it. And later on when I asked, well, why? It wasn't that, you know, it wasn't that he didn't want to take care of himself. He just hadn't seen it have a good effect. He hadn't seen somebody do it and feel better. When we think about the lessons that we want to be able to teach our kids, it's like, whoa, I didn't mean to teach that lesson. And it has now become so imperative to me that I must take care of myself. I must show him, I must teach him through my actions how worthwhile I am, because I must teach him how worthwhile he is and that he is worth being taken care of well by more people than just his mother, right? So that's why self-care, super duper important, and I'm going to make it a priority throughout the year, and we're calling it Self-Care Tuesday. And I say to you, this is as important to me as it is to you, so I'm right there with you. I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but we're all going to get better at it. I hope you come with me, not kicking and screaming. So what is our first tip for self-care? We're going to talk about moisture. I could have put hydrate, but the truth of the matter is that I want us to moisturize on the inside and the outside. I want you to be thinking about water. I want you to think about how water comes into your life and how we process it. It was so funny because I sat in a doctor's office with my son the other day, and the doctor was talking to him about how important it was for him to hydrate. And as I was listening to her talk to him about that, I was thinking about how I know how important it is for him to hydrate. And I usually don't go anywhere that I don't pack a bottle of water for my son to go someplace. And I will frequently pack a bottle of water for myself, but I frequently do not take the time to drink it. So I'm carrying around full bottles of water, like a camel, saving it for some emergency, I know not what. Yes, I'm just being honest and telling you about my crazy behavior. But if drinking water is not a part of our every hour, we become dehydrated. And let me tell you about some of the things that happen when you get dehydrated. When you get dehydrated, you wrinkle faster, right? Let's go right to vanity. If nothing else, let's hydrate so that we, our skin looks better and we don't wrinkle as long. But your brain doesn't function as well. You won't sleep as well. I've read all these things in the last couple of weeks about drinking a good size amount of water, at least 8 ounces, first thing in the morning before you do anything else. That honestly, that is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves health-wise. And I know, and like this makes my brain go, what? But the other thing is drinking water right before you go to bed at night. Now my what is, I'm already getting up in the middle of the night to have to go to the bathroom. So really, I want to drink more water? Is that really the ticket? But the truth of the matter is, especially for those of us who are getting a little bit, on the other side of things, if you're over the age of 45, they say that drinking a glass of water before you go to bed helps to prevent headaches, helps to prevent strokes, helps to prevent heart attacks. Oh my goodness, the list goes on. So, we've all heard that 8 glasses of water every day and have thought, how am I going to fit that in? And that's just crazy talk. But there's 2 of them right there. When you get up in the morning first thing, even before the breakfast, even before the shower, any of that stuff, they're saying, have that water in the morning, like right by your bedside, and drink it, and then start your day. And then probably it's a good 20 minutes before you're, having breakfast and running out the door. So I say to you, try it. I've been trying to do it. I have not been pristine about it, but I find that I'm better for the day. I have more energy if I drink water. And then drink it at the end of the night. But it's moisturizing inside and outside. One of the best gifts we can give ourselves is to make sure that we're retaining the moisture that we have within us. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we were taught that, you put on lotion at different weird times of the day, and a doctor recently explained to me, no, it's, whenever you take a shower, whether it's in the morning or the night, whenever you are exposed to water, it's when you come out, you've toweled off, that is the exact moment in which to moisturize. That doing it at any other time is inefficient. The moisturizer doesn't have the opportunity because it kind of seals the moisture in. That's the purpose of moisture. I did not know this. Did you know this? I did not know this. So moisturizing after any kind of a bathing ritual is the ideal moment to do it. I'm a real nut about making sure that the moisturizers we work, if you're going to put something all over your skin, make sure that it's something that's really, really healthy for you and not full of ingredients that are not the ticket, right? One of the things that I think, there's natural things like coconut oil that work really well, and I tend to use that on my son. It's also an antioxidant. And you can just do straight coconut oil. You don't have to do anything else to it. Just keeping it real here, on my face, I use olive oil with castor bean oil, and I mix it myself and have it in little pump bottles all over the house. And I'm pretty good about remembering to moisturize my face, and I'm trying to be better about making sure that I moisturize the rest of my person. So whatever you use it and use it frequently, but make sure you're using it at the right time. It's after you've been exposed to water. If you find that your hands are really, really dry, have it with you so that if you wash your hands after doing dishes, you put a layer of it on. You wash your hands always after going to the bathroom, put a layer of whatever that moisturizer is. It seals the water in. Let's all, for a week, what have we got to lose? For a week, let's hydrate. Inside and outside. We'll meet back here in a week. We'll compare notes. We'll see if we feel better. Because when we feel better, we put that out into the world. We're more efficient. We're more available to be there to help others. And I know for a lot of us, that's a big, big deal. Self-Care Tuesdays, we're trying it out. Let us know what you think. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with more from Autism Live. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of this with all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Grant Pichet.
Welcome back to Autism Live. This is our first show back in the year 2016. I want to thank everybody for writing in and wishing us. It's weird because, you know, I don't say we celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Jem's diagnosis of autism. We commemorate it. But I do think there is an element of us that, you know, a survival element that 10 years is 10 years of what we've been able to do in 10 years is something to celebrate. And I want to talk more at length about that. But there's a news story this week, so many news stories that we haven't been able to chance to talk about. We're going to be talking about them all week long. But one in particular that jumped off the headlines for me last night, Providence, Rhode Island, There is a teacher's assistant who has been accused of sexually assaulting a student with autism at a middle school where he works. He has been charged with third-degree sexual assault of a male student. And I'm not going to say the name of the school. It's available in the news, but I don't want to say the name of the school because I don't think that helps the young man who's going through this. And of course, we understand that this man has been accused of this and that we do not, he gets to have a fair trial among his peers. But I wanted to talk about a couple of different things here that the reason why they discovered that there was any kind of a problem is because an OT reported that she saw, or he saw, I don't know whether the OT is male or female, that they saw some inappropriate physical contact that disturbed them. And we have had people on the show before who have worked in schools, who have been aides, who have been OTs. I'm thinking of Richard Stripp in particular, who wrote the book, Mom, If I Could Tell You What Happened to Me at School. And Richard shared with us that he stopped being somebody who worked at a school because he found that there was an environment in which if you told on somebody for something, any kind of behavior, whether it was swearing at a student or misconduct or physically hitting them or sexual misconduct, that there was an environment in which you were encouraged not to share. And I hate to think that that's true, but I believe, Richard, that is true. I want to give a shout out to this OT who overcame that in the name of what was right. To speak up and say, I am seeing something and it is not right. I want to encourage all of us who have contact with kids who are in school. Whenever somebody is working on a school site, they have to go through a mandatory training that makes them a first reporter, which means if you see something, you legally have the responsibility to report it. And if you don't, you can be found guilty of lesser charges of whatever it is that's charged. So there is that legal element to it that you must act accordingly. I know that's hard for some people, but I really want to encourage everybody that if you're seeing something that is not right, say it. Now, you might be a parent in the classroom and see another child, whether it's the teacher just isn't nice to them. I remember visiting my son's school, and we'd been through a particularly rough year in second grade where he'd gone through 2 teachers and now there was a third teacher that was there, and they were a good teacher, but there was one student in particular that I don't know what it was, but I just felt like she rode him extra hard. And it was one of those things where I wasn't sure whether to say something, but I eventually said something to the mom and said, I think you should know that I don't think this is right. It's tough. It's really, really tough, and no one thanks you for it. I'll be honest with you, because it's uncomfortable, but so important. And in my case, it was such a lesser thing, right? But in this case, keeping our kids safe has to be priority number 1. So I hope that everybody at least mentally sends some love to that OT for having spoken up and having said, I see something, I don't think it's right. We need more people like that working with our kids. And I really want to encourage all of you to make sure as you can, and none of us can be 100% sure, that your kid is safe at school. If your kid is with somebody that your gut says, change it. It doesn't matter how weird they look at you at the school district. We have a right, and our kids have a right to feel good when they're there. If you're seeing a sudden change of behavior in your child where they suddenly don't want to go to school, get to the bottom of it. Our kids deserve that. And I hope that justice is swift and just with this gentleman. Again, these allegations against him, I don't know whether they're true or not, but if they are, good luck to him, because where they're sending him, they're not kind to predators to children, right? Okay. So moving on, we've only got a few minutes left. I want to go to a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to tell a little bit of the story of when Jem was diagnosed and why it's so important to me today after an article that I read last night. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable. That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
There is hope. Man, that's the watchword for the whole year. We're almost out of time here, but I just wanted to say that it was 10 years ago this week that I went to a room, sat there for 2.5 hours while a doctor, a developmental pediatrician, put my son through a bunch of tests. And at the end of that 2.5 hours, she went to leave, and I said, whoa, wait, what are we talking about here? And she had a very thick German accent, and she said to me, yeah, autism. It was said to me in a way, I always say this, that was a capital A, not a lowercase a. And if you see any, you can always tell if it's me or Kelby who wrote it, because I put autism with a capital A always. So if it's got a capital A, I wrote it. Because believe me, those of you who've been there, it was a capital A, right? And, but I sat there with that doctor. I wouldn't let her leave the room. And I said, help me. What do I do to help my child? And she said, take him home and enjoy him. And I said, but what about, isn't there something so I can get him to talk again? What can I do? And I said, what about that AB whatever thing? And she said, oh, you mean ABA? And I said, yes, what about that? I've heard some good things about that. And she said, oh no, promise me you won't do ABA with this child. She told me it would turn him into a robot. He would be an automaton. He would never understand what he was saying, that they would, through terrorizing techniques, they would train him to say something that he would never understand it. And I believed her because she was a developmental pediatrician. Nothing could have been further from the truth. It took me longer to get to ABA because of the words that she said to me. And just last night, there was an article about the Clinton campaign's idea for autism, and one of the criticisms for it, and I believe it was in the Huffington Post, was that it included ABA, and it said, which is, many people believe it to be torturous and not effective. I am here to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. Good ABA has nothing to do with torture. It is what saved my son, is what saved me. But it has to be good quality ABA. You have to know who you're talking to. Talk to the people who have been there and done that, and we're going to bring them here to you in 2016. We're totally out of time. Back tomorrow with Dr. Grant Pichet and an amazing author with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We'll see you then. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you as well. Bye-bye for now.